Ah, all right, I'm gonna have to edit it. Go ahead, Kristin.
Okay. Hello again. You've reached the EA view, and this is the month of Leo, and I'm rejoined here by my colleagues, my EA colleagues, Deva Green, Stacie Pazura, Rose Marcus, and W Jonassen. We've taken a little break, a 3-month break, but we're back to discuss the archetype of Leo, and I just wanted to say welcome to all my friends and colleagues here. Welcome back, you guys.
Hello. I know, it's nice to be back again.
It's been a bit. We missed a couple archetypes. We're sorry, but our fearless leader has flown to the sky, and lucky her, like an eagle, she's free, and we miss her. But we're going to do what we can to carry the torch and to bring you the EA teachings in this wonderful format called the EA View. It's so much fun to gather with all you guys and just do everything that we can to express this archetype in full with a lot of flavor and fun and depth late today. So,
amen.
All right, and so just to remind you all, we each have a power animal. Mine's Crystallion. So why don't you remind everybody what yours are? Rose
I am the
owl.
wolf.
Stacie the wolf.
Mine's the bunny.
And Deva the bunny.
The owl.
And I'm the silverback, but I forgot it home. I'm far away in the mountainside of Norway, so I'm far from home.
You're
All right.
silverback.
It's all good. And we love to introduce different stories of the daemon archetype as well. It's one of the archetypes we talk about in evolutionary astrology, which essentially is our souls who've spent a majority of past lives in nature with animals and plants. And we see that with the mutable axis, strong mutable axis, starting with Sagittarius archetype. So Stacie's got a story for us today to kick off this awesome Leo month EA View webinar off. Look at that lion, oh my goodness. So go for it, Stace.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about George Adamson today. He's a wildlife conservationist, and it's interesting, you know, he was born in India, went to Catholic school, moved to Kenya to work on a coffee plantation when he was in his 30s and just wasn't feeling it. And so he tried a bunch of other things, but then he did have an interest in safari hunting, which is, wait for it, but that, you know, he did come from that background. He was interested in safari hunting, and he became a warden for the Kenya National Park. And during his time there, he got to know lions. He got to know the wildlife he was working with, and it was his job to protect them from poachers and people that sought to do animals harm. And there was a point in his life where after he married his famous wife Joy, who wrote the book Born Free, once he married her, they kind of worked as a team. And there was one unfortunate day where he had to shoot a male lion because in self-defense, and it left 3 orphaned cubs. And so they took in the cubs, and 2 of them went to zoos, which isn't the best, thing, but they took the smallest cub of them all and took the cub in. It was a female, and raised her and nurtured her. And I think she was about 3 years old, and they decided, instead of like thinking of, okay, let's get her ready for captivity, let's teach her how to hunt and then release her back in the wild. And so this is something that was very unorthodox relative to scientists in that time. Oh, by the way, I guess I should mention his time. He was born in 1906, right? So when he dealt with Elsa, this was about 1956. And so, in this tragic experience happens, and they have these cubs, and they send 2 to the zoo, which I know they didn't like, but there was something in their conscience that said, we don't want to send the third one. We want to try something different. And so he took this unorthodox approach to train it how to hunt and release it. And that's what they did. And she did live in the wild. I mean, she had her challenges, but the thing that he noted was that the connection that they had made was sustained, even though she was in the wild, she was doing her thing, she was hunting, acting like a wild lion. But obviously they would cross paths because this was his domain as a warden. And eventually, I mean, she ended up dying of like a tick disease. And as I understand it, she died in his lap. But from his notes and from his observations, he spoke up about it. And, you know, not many scientists were on board at the time. They were just like, what are you talking about? This, you're supposed to have data. But his whole thing was that and this is important, he viewed animals, like as he was doing his work as a warden, I mentioned safari earlier, he ended up throwing that off because he started to see like, wow, these animals are individuals and they have these individual capacities. And, you know, the human race, because he was starting to view the world as a whole entity and, you know, not just a case subject, you know. And at the time that was a very different way of approaching things scientifically. And so, but he just knew, like, he just, you know, he knew what he saw, he knew what he experienced, and he was hell-bent on helping other people to catch a glimpse of it. And a lot of people did. And in the end, I mean, he ended up being murdered by bandits, and his wife was murdered as well by, you know, an employee. And that's kind of sad. But what they did, I mean, they just absolutely, like, they did something important for the existing status quo, which was to say, you know, if there's some kind of problematic wild animal, you don't just have to send them to a zoo. Maybe there's another option. And in the process of doing that, he learned to see animals. And this is one thing he said, was that he realized their individual capacities as individual animals and saw them, those capacities, as equal to human beings, which is why he started to put so much effort into his work of trying to save animals, you know, because as a warden in the Kenya National Park, there's poachers and there's all kinds of things going on to the big game and even the small game. And he just really, like, learned a lot about life and the world and how this whole thing works. And to me, that is the essence of the daemon consciousness, is, you know, you start to see things through an animal's eyes, like, truly, you know, it's when you stop looking through, you know, relating to an animal like they're an animal, but rather what is their experience and what do they have to offer the world in this huge ecosystem. And so I just sort of wanted to kind of tell the story about him, because I mean, this is something that we all, I think, it would be really helpful for all of us to absorb. And I mean, the world would be such a different place if we all thought like that. And so I just wanted to honor his contribution to that way of thinking.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacie. All right. Wonderful way to initiate the Leo Lion for the month. And we're going to move to the chart of the month, or the transit of the month, to let you know what's coming very soon. Very powerful transit that Rose Marcus is going to spearhead this section. Let's go for it.
All right. Hello, everyone. So this chart that we have on the screen is for August 19, 2021 is when we're recording this. We are recording this on Saturday, and tomorrow, this is August 14. And tomorrow on August 15, Venus will move into the sign of Libra. On the 19th, the reason I chose this particular chart to talk about is because on the 19th, Uranus will station retrograde. And this is the annual, retrograde tour for Uranus. But in going retrograde, it's a very interesting chart here. First of all, to mention that, as you can see on the screen, the retrogrades, Pluto is retrograde, Saturn is retrograde, Jupiter is retrograde, Neptune is retrograde. So all the outer planets are in retrograde motion. Sitting beside Neptune is Pallas Athena, which is staying very, very close to Neptune through the end of the month. It will go new phase at the end of the month. So Uranus stationing retrograde in the sign of Taurus. The other planets in October, Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter will turn direct. It will be the beginning of December for Neptune, and Uranus will turn direct in January. So we have a lot of inverted planetary energies. So first of all, a retrograde archetype here is about individuation, right? It is about I always like to say lift and separate, in order to give you the opportunity to have a perspective that is, different, to examine from a different level, to tune inwardly and to hear, what the instincts are around whatever it is that you might be dealing with at the moment. Now, accompanying this particular transit of Uranus stationing retrograde, first of all on the screen, you'll notice that the sun is at 27 degrees of Leo, and it is opposing Jupiter retrograde. So we have a Sun-Jupiter opposition Leo Aquarius, and on the 23rd of August will be a full moon. The full moon will be in Aquarius opposing that sun. It's going to go over that Jupiter. So this is really setting up. And of course, the Jupiter-Sun opposition is going to increase, the creative development of whatever it is in action right now. All right, so we've got that component coming to a peak at the full moon on the 23rd. Now, this is very interesting here as well too with the Uranus transit, because if you'll notice in the 6th house, and I'm using just for teaching purposes here, you can make an adjustment for any time zone you might be in, natural houses with 0 Aries on the ascendant. But if you look in the 6th house, you're going to see that Mercury and Mars are together in the sign of Virgo. They're 13, 14 degrees. And so they are forming a trine to this planet Uranus, all right, that is stationing retrograde. Now, when a planet stations retrograde, it's an amplification influence. It's slowing down in its orbit. It's intensifying its influence. Uranus in Taurus, that's about evaluating in some kind of new way. What has value and meaning to you? And there's a shift going on here. With Mars and Mercury together, there's a suggestion, the point to make here is that when a planet turns direction, it is slowing in its orbit to stop, to slow and pick up some speed. So especially Mercury is a little bit faster moving than Mars, but Mars is going to be in a holding pattern with that Uranus for a few days. It's just prior to the station retrograde and through to the full moon on the 23rd. So this is setting something up. And, what I think about this, when you have Virgo archetype here, it is about fixing it. It's about improving it. It's about correcting it. It's about healing it. It's about taking care of whatever it is that you haven't been able to get around to yet. Mercury and Mars there together are bringing, it's about sourcing the information or, sourcing whatever it is you don't have yet. That would be, looking for a job or, looking for other opportunities or looking for perhaps a a better health practitioner, or looking for a helper, or looking for any of those kinds of things. You know, there's many different avenues. How do I, how do I move forward here? I might not have all the tools that I need right now, but this Uranus relative to the Mars, Mercury, the Jupiter, Sun is putting everything on the increase. Is kind of saying at the moment here, I might not have, it might not be perfect. It might not be all complete right now, but maybe I should try it on for size and see what it's going to do. And I think that putting it in motion, you might start someplace. Once that retrograde happens, it's going to reveal something that might be the fixer-upper, the solution, that, the whatever it might be. Here there is, I think, great creative opportunity to move something forward in a way that if you've been stuck, I have to say this, Aquarius and Leo, Aquarius particularly, rules politics, and what we have going on right now in Canada, where I live, is that today's Saturday, and tomorrow our premier, Trudeau, is expected to dismantle Parliament and call a snap election. And the fastest he can go for an election is 36 days. So this is kind of like a fast track. And this whole thing to me describes exactly that. And it's been interesting because the other parties have gotten wind of this, and they've already started campaigning before the announcement has been made. So it's about this, getting a jump start on something. So if there's something that is, needed, that I've just got to do this, it might not feel like I'm ready, or it's the perfect moment, or don't have all the tools, or whatever it is put it in motion. And right after this, Mars and Uranus trine. Additionally, we have Venus in a nice trine to Saturn retrograde as well too. There's so many supportive transits building up for the rest of this week, building up for the full moon, moving forward through the rest of the month. I've got, dates here from the 20th all the way through the 29th that are supporting on a move ahead. Even I might say with things around COVID, the government here in Canada is, taking big steps now to make sure that all healthcare workers have their vaccines. And there's whatever it is, there's a big push on to get whatever needs to be corrected, fixed, improved, healed, to get on it. And I might say that we're sitting here with, with the extreme fire conditions and so on. We're getting the message that we have to move a little bit faster on global initiatives as well too. So, if you're hearing that, got to move faster on things, don't quite know how it's going to play out, but got to take the dive anyway, then you're picking up the energy of all of these transits. Kristin, you have something to...
Oh, I'm just actually really excited about this particular planetary combination because Mars drives everything forward in our life. And I would say for those of you that have been chipping away at something, putting effort towards something for a long time, I mean, I definitely don't think this is a time when people are going to experience great breakthroughs if you haven't put in an effort ahead of time. So because, Saturn in this context is all about like the harvest, something over time building, and then finally like that breakthrough happening. Mars drives our life forward. It is the younger brother to Pluto. So it is the planet in our chart that really is the lead point in your evolution. It has to do with the choices you're making. You can choose to go work on something or, sit on the couch and not do anything. So where your efforts are happening, to me, will generate the opening. Mercury right there with Mars too, I love because it rules the North Node. It's the ruler for the North Node that is driving your life forward in some way. And to put that pair in a trine to Uranus, now with Mercury being the lower octave of Uranus and Uranus and Mercury being considered brothers or that pair, wow, I mean, something could happen in a flash, in a flip of a switch, so fast your head spins, so fast you didn't even see it coming. And I would say it's potentially a very electric, positive, life-changing, transformational thing. And so much of our life is what we we are energizing, what we're thinking about. So with Virgo in mind, we want to make sure that we're really energizing solutions and what we want versus not what we don't want. We don't want to energize the negative, but the positive, because energy at this time next weekend is extremely powerful. So if you want to influence your life in a positive way, imagine and energize what it is that you want to see happening. And I feel like there's just results could be very swift at that time.
Absolutely. And to make note that both Mercury and Mars are on their way to trining Pluto, right? You know,
Right.
Mercury does on the 26th of August. So yeah, absolutely. You know, get to work. You're going to see fantastic results out of it.
Mars will trine Pluto. I think it's around is it around the 8th of September, something like that?
Yeah, I don't have the date in front of me, but I think you're right about that, somewhere around there.
All right. So, and you know, in essence, it could just be that you're getting the validation for something that you need. You're getting news. That's Mercury news about something progressing. You know, it's like with COVID and everything else, you know, so a lot of people have been feeling really stuck, or, you know, like you had mentioned earlier, I think one of the examples might have been like, maybe you want to interview for a job and such, and maybe you're not hearing from anybody. And then all of a sudden you get the call or you get the email. So that's, to me, just a wonderful little pocket of time, and it's loaded with opportunity.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Rose. I love talking transits with you. Every month at the end of the month, we get to do that together. So thanks for a little extra on this little special transit that day. And that whole weekend is so strong. And I would say the last 11 days, 12 days of September and into about the first days of September, highly influential. All right, so let's move into our fingerprint section. And this whole EA view came about because we were thinking about the fact that Jeffrey Green used to talk about souls that were really actualizing what they came here to be and do. They weren't apologizing for anything. They were just being who they were, honoring their fingerprint. You know, our fingerprint, there's no two alike, no two souls are alike. So we are trying our best to celebrate people in the world that we feel are really doing that and sending a message or being a role model in one way or another. And so Meghan Markle is our fingerprint for Leo. She just had her 40th birthday on the 4th, and she's in the news quite a bit these days. And so Stacie, can you share with everybody just some background on this soul?
Yeah, sure. So everyone pretty much, I mean, before she became the Duchess of Sussex through marrying Prince Harry, Prince Harry, she was known to be an actress on this, it was like a 7-season series called Suits. And that's what she was best known for. But prior to that, she did have a background where she really revealed this aspect of herself that cared about the world and was really interested in concerns about equity. And there was one day, I can't remember how old she was. It was in her very young teens. And she wrote to, or she saw a commercial about Ivory soap. And they said, women can clean their things this way. And so she had a problem with it. And so she writes to the Procter and Gamble and says, and she actually said it in just the most adult kind of way. It was really mind-blowing. But she said, you know, it should say people can rely on this product, not women, because women don't do the same thing. And so, like, I'm saying this because this is like one of the cues of who she's trying to be and who she is being. So she goes through her life, does some acting things. She actually gets a double majors in theater and something else, some kind of organizational thing. And she starts seeing herself like she might be in politics. But you know, the acting kind of takes the front wheel. She's very successful and does that. And then in 2016, you know, which isn't that long ago, that's when she met Prince Harry. And they hadn't met before, but he had seen her, and someone arranged a blind date. And, the first night they were together, they just thought, wow, let's see each other tomorrow. And so it kind of progressed from there. And obviously Prince Harry, he's a prince in the British monarchy. And so, and we know that the royal family is very controlled and careful about the public image that is given out. And she just ended up kind of being a force of like, well, you don't fit in here. And a lot of it had to kind of stemmed back to her race, and it also stemmed back to her outspokenness and because I remember her initially saying that when I first, I was really nervous about meeting the royal family, but once I did, they were very welcoming. But then there was a point where the welcoming stopped and they wanted to keep her silent. And so then we had all of this controversy where her and Harry decided, well, we're not going to be a part of this. And just as an aside, Harry had kind of the same kind of ideas going on because his mother, both of them had very deep struggles relative to media and rumors and public exposure. And it wasn't always fair. And in fact, this is eventually Harry and Meghan decided that we're going to go ahead and step away from our royal responsibilities, which is, not everyone does that. I mean, I think it's been a long time since anyone's shown that kind of initiative. And it was because they both talked about how their mental health was so challenged because they were accused of things that just weren't right and were not equitable. But then lies would be told to help other people. And so they just saw I guess these are my words, hypocrisy of the whole situation, and decided we're not going to do it. We're going to leave. And so they did. They had 10 days of talks. And then finally the Buckingham Palace comes out and said, okay, well, they are going their own way and they are, going to move beyond their royal responsibilities. And it was a worldwide controversy. And but in the meantime, well, actually, I'm going to start there because I'm going too far. So that's kind of the basic outline of who Meghan Markle is. She's a very strong woman. She married a man who is, the royal family, which got her into a situation of where conformity is expected. And so let's just talk about how that plays out. So we're going to start with Deva. He's going to talk about the Pluto paradigm and how evolution kind of works in the soul in her context.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that background. You can follow that through the Pluto paradigm, seeing the Pluto in Libra being in the 4th house. That's the baseline, or that's the starting point for the interpretation. And Stacie, as you were sharing, having to break out of expectations by internalizing her own emotional security that couldn't be dependent upon the family environment. Nurturing was ultimately coming from within herself. The South Node being in Aquarius in the 7th house, disconnecting, liberating from the norm, being able to break out of convention, break out of the mainstream. And there's a beautiful quote by her that I really feel illustrates those points. She's saying, I think having the courage to step out of the norm is the most important thing. And she also says, I don't sit around thinking about my titles and my roles. I just do what feels right. And looking at that, it's amazing how she had to break free or she had to disconnect in order to re-empower. That's that Aquarius Leo axis. She had to decondition from or sever attachments from ultimately what was creating those dependencies or external emotional security, seeing Pluto and Libra in the fourth, going to the polarity point, Aries in the 10th, ruled by Leo. Oh, I'm sorry, that Uranus, the planetary ruler of the South Node, is Uranus and Scorpio in the 5th, self-empowerment, breaking ties, at times challenging what those expectations were. Ultimately saying, in order for me to follow my destiny, North Node in the 1st house, I'm going to sever these attachments. I'm going to liberate myself. And Pluto's polarity point then being in Aries in the 10th house, North Node being Leo in the 1st. And here's another beautiful quote, which I feel kind of illustrates that karmic dynamic in general. It says, you have to make a choice. You can continue living your life feeling muddled in this abyss of self-misunderstanding, or you can find your identity independent of it. You push for colorblind casting. You draw your own box. You introduce yourself as who you are, not what your color, not what color your parents happen to be. I mean, very strong Leo archetype in terms of introduce yourself as you are. North Node in Leo in the 1st house conjunct Mercury, independent from the muddles of race, family, identity that has been conditioned, and bringing that into the Saturn moon balsamic then, in Libra in the 3rd house, when you see planets that are in a balsamic conjunction, you're closing a cycle. It indicates completion. And looking at this, that she's in a process of culmination or completing, being conditioned or being having her self-identity or self-image being conditioned by those external factors, Moon, Saturn, balsamic. Libra in the 3rd house, Stacie, what you were sharing, refusing to be silenced. She was not going to allow herself to be censored because of the expectations of others, what could and what could not be spoken. So bringing that to culmination, having to meet the royal family, ultimately how it first started, so welcoming, and then the more that she stepped into her voice, the more that she refused to be silenced, the more that she said, no, this is the direction that my soul, or that I feel my special destiny is here. That led to that balsamic energy of saying, okay, then we'll need to release you. And from my perspective, she seemed more than happy to be released. If that meant her freedom, if that meant that she could then strike out on her own and advocate for social equality, social justice, then that was fine. And personally, I admire her for that very much. And seeing that it's in the culmination phase too, being attuned to something higher, that ultimately what she was speaking to were situations of universal equality. I love what you shared, Stacie, about language. Look at that 3rd house. You should say it's a person in terms of the use of language and how it's advocating equality. Again, the themes of social justice, equity, that in the end, everybody has equal rights. We're human, we're people first. Seeing the balsamic energy, it can draw in a very universal energy in terms of how that moon, Saturn, Libra in the 1st house was playing out, an equal playing field, so to speak. So in terms of that Saturn moon balsamic phase, what she was culminating were these relationships where it would come down to whether she would accept being conditioned or being repressed or playing into those expectations around what was acceptable to speak, or whether she would challenge that. South Node in Aquarius in the 7th, Uranus and Scorpio in the 5th. And with the North Node being in Leo in the 1st, she followed her fingerprint. She decided that she was going to initiate her own freedom, to speak in ways that that she felt drawn to. Saturn moon balsamic and not be conditioned by those factors.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to think that in this kind of, and I guess we should maybe mention her, because in evolutionary astrology, we like to try to incorporate the factor of evolutionary state, right? Because wherever you are in your soul's evolution is going to condition, and it's going to affect the kinds of lessons that you are dealing with in your life. And so for this purpose, you know, it seems clear that she is in the first stage individuated, because she did make this choice to marry into this family, the whole Libra dynamic. You know, that was her choice. And she does have, you know, and that's part of her work, and we can see it play out in her life. You know, she knows she has a purpose. She knows her worth. But, you know, part of the one of the challenges of the first stage individuated is that you're learning how to find security beyond the consensus, you know, which means sometimes you must challenge it when it doesn't feel right. And so I kind of wanted to put that in, and that's a lot of what you just said is so relevant to it. But Rose, like, so tell us about, because this whole thing that we're talking about, she's obviously breaking free and severing attachments, Aquarius, South Node, Aquarius, Libra. So I understand you have some insights on Uranus and Scorpio in the 5th.
Yes, and I want to say that, Deva, you're absolutely brilliant at describing the paradigm, and I just absolutely love listening to you. The chart is not showing the fact that Uranus is at station. We just showed the other chart with the transit. Now this is a chart that has Uranus at station in Scorpio in the 5th house. And it had turned direct 1 hour, less than 1 hour before Meghan was born. So the first thing to say is that a 5th house, you know, that's the archetype of Leo, creative self-actualization, correct? And it is coming through a Scorpio filter. So we have, and again, Uranus is the signature for the long-term memory that the soul has, Scorpio. So this Uranus in Scorpio at station, an amplified influence relative to Pluto in the 4th house in the sign of Libra. It's really going to punch up the desire of the soul. And Scorpio is a fixed energy. So this is a soul that is fixated on her evolution, right? Just as a statement from there. And this is very, very, very interesting. The 5th house rules a batch of different things. You know, besides the whole creative component there, the 5th house is an archetype for father, right? You know, and she has, you know, a huge karmic program with her father, who has been, you know, a source of great emotional pain for her in terms of the, you know, all that's been played out in the media. So there's one huge thing there. She's also had, by the way, a miscarriage, which the 5th house rules children. And, you know, there's another statement there. During the, you know, whole crises time, she was saying that she had suicidal thoughts, and that's going to be that position right there with that Uranus and Scorpio. You know, Scorpio is an archetype of confronting, and it's an archetype of you know, peeling off a layer and going down a deeper layer and going down a deeper layer. Like this soul is on a, you know, on a mission to drill right down to the core of her soul's desires for her own evolution. And relative to that 4th house that that internalizing of emotional security. We see that Venus is in the sign of Virgo in the second house, and it is also forming balsamic to Pluto. So it's an idea of culminating. What a balsamic influence is doing two things. It's finishing off, it's culminating a whole chapter of evolution. It's also seeding for the future. And I think that when I look at this Libra, all that Libra stuff, what she's really looking for is, equality and co-creative and, the balance and, all of that, which she comes into in many different ways. But as soon as she gets there, then, a deeper level is uncovered in terms of what the soul is facing and needs to correct in order for the evolution to proceed. And again, that south node in Aquarius at 1 degree, remember that the nodes travel retrograde. So at 1 degree, that's culminating, the nodes are culminating in the Leo Aquarius archetype. It was very interesting. Stacie mentioned when she was a young teenager, in that commercial for cleaning and so on. You know what she did? Like, this is, showing how, this is not new programming, it's old programming. When she comes into that and says, why don't you do people? Well, whatever it was, Procter Gamble wrote back or didn't write back. So what she did was she went to the top. She went to Gloria Steinem and Hillary Clinton, who was, in power at the time, to say, whoa, this is a problem. And it was through them that change took place. That's the Leo part, go straight to the top, right? It's an interesting influence. Uranus is also about energy. And it's about the magnetic draw, especially with that Scorpio. So, here, this woman is going to create or magnetize exactly what she needs for her own evolution. The fact that she came from, a split family, or parents divorced when she was young. And, it's interesting with the Venus retrograde relative to Pluto in the 4th house represents both parents, right? When she was with her mother, they thought it was the hired help because she's dark skinned, right? It's, that kind of dynamic. She had to face biracialism, that's that Libra archetype in the 4th as well, too, so we have, if you're white, you're okay. If you're dark skinned, maybe you're inferior, right? All those kinds of things. This is a person who is going directly into each one of her issues, kind of one by one, is what I think. Like, boom, right into the disempowerment of women. Boom, right into the biracial issue. Boom, right into, and I think that, the 5th house deals with the heart chakra as well, too. She magnetized to herself, a primary partner, and that tied her into the family and the family firm of the royals, that 4th house, that Uranus to that Pluto position is about having to divorce the family, and so the reason that Harry and Meghan, have just really clicked is because here are two people with deep, deep, deep soul trauma. And they're both at a point of looking to liberate from all of the emotional pain that they've had, similar but different. That's the Libra archetype. And I want to say one more thing about this chart. I don't want to go too far because I know we're on a time level too, but Libra is an archetype of appearances, right? And sometimes it's considered superficial. And Stacie, you brought this up of first state individuated as well too. Sometimes in first state individuated, we have a category that I call the do-gooders. We try really, really hard to be good people. Libra wants to be liked. It wants to be socially accepted. And some of what she's doing now, I think, has the potential to be judged. Is she just doing this because she wants to look like she's doing good, or is she doing this because it's right at her heart and soul, right? So I think that she still gets, public judgment against her. And I think that this is a chart that I say is like destined to lock on to target and to keep going until that evolution has been created. So I think it's brilliant what we've seen so far, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens next to her and to both of them in terms of their future creative endeavors.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic explanation of that, that dynamic within her that is trying to be an individual and what she's going through to do it. And so Sol, let's hear from you. You've got something to say about Mars in Cancer.
Yeah, and thank you for all your contributions. It really gave me a lot of things to pull into that Mars in Cancer, because it's really a highlighted planet in her chart in many ways. It's she has a Cancer rising, and just when the sun, it was probably visible in the horizon when she was born. So there's this feeling of a certain kind of magnitude over her Mars placement. And for me, it really reveals a little bit of her difficulties. From old days on, we used to say that the 12th house was the house of hidden enemies. And we've certainly seen that she's had a lot of hostility projected upon her. And this Mars is also squaring all her numerous Libra planets. So this whole situation with her family, this volatile, we can probably assume that with a Mars being ruled by the moon, square the moon, and then Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto there, it seems to me that this divorce that her parents went through wasn't all amicable. There were bitterness, and probably also she was stuck in between, as you mentioned, Rose. I mean, it's always this dualism. And then Deva, you said this polarity point of Aries, it's actually ruled by Mars in Cancer. And her quest for her own self is a little bit challenged, because Mars in Cancer is a very emotional creature. It's looking for security, and it sort of opposes everything else in her chart. This fierce first house woman, coming in here. She's showing off a lot of courage, but underneath, she might not feel that she really is that strong. She's very, very sensitive. There's a reason why they moved to the United States, and afterwards, there's been projections in the media, for instance, like how she's now the enemy of the crown. Like she's the one who's going to rule the monarchy, ruin the monarchy, and she's getting this classical projection that she's a very Martian kind of warring kind of figure, that she's just out to create trouble, and that her intentions are selfish in one way or another. But it shows also that we haven't really gotten a chance to know her real self, because it's quite hidden. It's underneath all that exterior, there's a very sensitive, vulnerable human being who's looking for family, who's looking for connection, who's looking for security. And every one of these experiences that she's going through is just showing her that you can't get it on an external, you can't get it from the outside. You have to figure out how to get it from within yourself. And this is a very, difficult thing for her to do, especially because of that square to Jupiter. She wants to change the world in order so that she can be safe, right? There's like this, when you have Mars Jupiter square, you often get a temptation to be a bit of a crusader. Maybe she tried to fix things, it went wrong, they went against her. I mean, I think she has had a lot of times this feeling that whatever you do, you're going to do it wrong. So there's this sense of injustice that comes with this. So instead of focusing on helping, for instance, her own family, she should do what a Moon Mars person often does, which is also emphasized by another theme, as you mentioned, Rose: divorce your family and create something completely new. And I was surprised when I realized she was mixed race, because I had no idea. I'm like, huh, really? I mean, maybe it's because I'm not particularly I'm like, this is a beautiful woman. That's what I saw. You know, I didn't think more about it. But then it really made a lot of sense, this incredible journey that she has, and how incredibly important those nodal axes on her ascendant, descendant, it really starts to shine there. She's really here to move forward our way of thinking in a way, because she's a public figure, right? She's showing up and fighting this injustice. Mars in the 12th house often carry a public part where you're doing some of the fighting, you're the activist. So I think when she just manages her own Mars, when she manages to regulate her own Mars, her own reactions to things, she will be very helpful in bridging. Instead of, you know, going into this classical, well, we're over here across the Atlantic and you're over there, you know, in London, and there's a gap between us. You know, like, I mean, maybe this defensiveness as well is, you know, her need for protection, her need to get away. You know, maybe there's a chance that was also a very impulsive kind of reaction on her side, because she was needing this security so much. And it was easy probably for her to also get sympathy from Harry, because he's also carrying a little bit of anger towards his own family. Understandably so. It is a rigid, fixed thing, and we can just amuse ourselves over the fact that the Queen herself is Taurus, and his brother is Cancer, and his wife is Capricorn. So they're really carrying the torch. They're staying in the tradition and doing the more conservative thing, while she comes in as a Leo. Oh, come on, you know, a Leo, and then you meet the Queen, who's a fixed Taurus. It was kind of like, in a way, destined, you know, that there would be some sort of clash. And it's revealed a lot of the shadow material in the consciousness of the old institutions. And I don't think she intended it like that. And it really scared her. That's what I think. You know, she was like, oh, geez, just get me out of here quickly. No. And she's not the first one to give up her title. They're not the first one. We have had lately, actually, a series of those incidents in the monarchies in Europe. Our crown princess, Martha, was one of the first who actually did it. She wanted to be a channeler, a healer. So she wanted to make her own money and blah, blah, blah. You know, that's years ago. And then following suit was the Swedish royal family, with one of their siblings, also one of the younger siblings in that family, also wanting to step away from this construction that is the role of the monarchy, and wanting to do something real, you know, where they really could do something that mattered, you know, create some sort of change. That's at least what Martha would love to do, you know, instead of just, you know, waving and looking good. They wanted the freedom of expression, and you cannot take the freedom of expression away from someone with the North Node in Leo on the ascendant without getting some sort of reaction, because it's in her evolutionary blood to go up there and say, hey, you know, I'm taking the mic and I'm going to tell you, everybody, you know, I can't help myself, and she can't help herself. So I think, you know, as she will mature, Saturn is square her Mars as well, she will regulate herself better also when it comes to her own reactions to the outside world. And maybe when she steps away from trying to convince others about the rights and the wrongs, which is a classical Mars-Jupiter thing to do. It's a very, you know, like a temptation. There is a crusader. She will also find more inner peace, because she will be more in alignment with a principle of love, which is the highest principle a Leo can be in alignment with. You know, so I think she's doing a lot of personal attending that Mars in Cancer. It can be very demanding for someone who's born with Mars in Cancer to just be with it, because it's so in your gut. It's the solar plexus. It's your defense mechanisms, and you are protecting that most vulnerable bit of you, and you get triggered easily, but you cannot always show it. You know, so it's behind that Cancerian trust, and it's hard. It's hard on the digestive system. It's hard on your health. So I think for her, it's a you know, once she gets, you know, her head around that one, she's going to show off as this incredibly powerful Leonian regal person that she is.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And, you know, Mars in the 12th in Cancer, you know, that's, you know, we're talking about like this is a masculine impulse in our consciousness that is telling us to drive and telling us to act. And here it is in this archetype of Cancer that that is relative to our most vulnerable state, right? And you know, one of the things that she really has stood for is this issue of equality. And see, this refers back to this third house in Libra, you know, which has already been discussed. But you know, I remember there was, you know, there was the famous interview where she was with Oprah, and where it was discussed kind of where she's coming from, and we learned just that, you know, as a woman, this is what she said. She said, I have been a lifelong advocate for women, and in this family, I was silent. And then Oprah said, do you mean silenced? And then she said, yes. But like, I appreciate that she actually used the word silent because it was her choice, right? And so this is part of the dynamic of this Mars in Cancer in the 12th. You know, this is a transcendent thing that is being viewed among people larger than herself. It's not just her own personal experience, even though it is. It's also a, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's her role in this lifetime as well to have a public part as a it's a warrior for family, for safety, for basic rights. You know, Cancer
Absolutely.
is primal needs. Why can I not have primal, like that type of thing? Like, it's really also about protecting families and
right.
And you know. Being right and being in the right to do so. So I think, you know, that's very important for her, and it's practically impossible for her to, it is impossible for her to get away from, but she will get a lot of projections when it's in the 12th house. It's not a very easy placement of Mars. You know, it's the placement, it's the martyrized, they martyr her, you know, she becomes the martyr, she becomes the sacrificial lamb. In a way,
right?
She becomes the bad wolf in a way, if you want to say, like she's the enemy, right? So when you have that kind of hostility and you towards Mars in Cancer, what most often happens is that there's an introspection going on, and she will have to look at her own anger as well. You know, she cannot just go out and say they're angry with me. She will also own up to her own anger in one way or another, and her own emotional reactions. Maybe she is acting hostile as well, you know, without even saying a word. I don't know, you can have these hostile reactions. It's not about not being liked, it's just feeling threatened. You know, that's about it. You know, when Mars is feeling threatened, he's like, I don't like this person, you know, it starts to, and you might be smiling on, you know, on the outside, etc. and so forth. People pick it up, you know? So, you know, it's a little bit like, it reminds me of the words of Leonard Cohen, you know, there's a war between the rich and poor, this song, you know, the war between a man and a woman. There's like this war energy in this kind of like situation that you're either with me or against me. And, so I think, you know, if she felt safer on the inside, her reactions would be less intense, and she would feel safer as well. But I think when it comes to the British royal family, she gets into a moral situation where she generally cannot kind of like sign that paper and say, we agree on this kind of constitution, because she doesn't.
Right. And you got to give it to her. I mean, it's pretty, it takes a lot of courage to confront the royal family, which no one does. It's like all about precedent, and it's very strict, and you know, her with, you know, the help of her husband, because it's true, they're two souls who really they are aligned, and they have similar issues and
share
perspectives,
something.
and they
Yeah.
help each other, they reinforce each other. And so, but it's not easy. Hell no.
No, he's more in a pickle than her, of course, because it's his brother is involved, and they're getting not completely agreeing on everything because his brother is
Yeah.
well, different, you know. So it's a pickle. It's what you would call a pickle. But how she gets involved in these things, as you said, you would have to kind of commemorate her courage. I think, you know, with Mars in the 12th house, it's kind of like, oh, and now I'm here. You know, wow, you know, it's these great external spiritual forces that just starts popping into your life, and you're like, I don't know how that happened, but gee, here I am, you know.
Yeah,
So
but
you could see that one coming.
but it's also the idea, or, you know, part of that dynamic is that in the 12th house and in Pisces, you're like comprehending ideals, like ultimate ideals. And so this is a factor in her situation where there's a part of her that is holding herself to an ultimate ideal because she knows there's some role to play in that. I mean, you know,
I
but-
just wanted to say something, you know,
Do
it
it.
is also demonstrating as well too, you know, when Archie was born, she wanted to have privacy, you know, that's that Mars in Cancer. She wanted to protect her child, but the tradition was that you stood out on the front steps so the media could take pictures. So, you know, here she's doing something that would be quite natural. Wouldn't you want to, you know, savor that precious moment with your newborn child? And the world is pissed off at you because you haven't followed tradition to, you know, give us more, right? You know, that's that exposure element. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, and the thing is with Cancer, you just don't force cancers, right? Like you kind of like Capricorn, which is you know, Prince William's wife, Kate. She's Capricorn. She would easily just like, oh, no problem, you know, like, because it's Capricorn, and Capricorn is like, okay, I cried for 3 days, but I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go out and see the world, right? It's different. But whereas something Cancer, and especially also she has a very subjective, defensive kind of energy around her ascendant. She's very self-protective, you know. She just can't do that. She would naturally feel resistance. And what they projected onto her is very interesting, is that she's difficult. Right? She's difficult. And that's sometimes, you know, like, oh my goodness, yeah, I am specific about my needs and therefore I'm difficult, which is sometimes something that someone with Mars and Cancer can actually encounter in their own lives. Like, why are you so picky? Why are you so difficult? Can't you just say yes and play along? You know, and Mars and Cancer go, you know, nope.
yeah. So, I mean, kind of just going off the heels of that, you mentioned the word self-protective, and really that's kind of what we've been discussing is not disgusting, but discussing. But there is this strength within her. She's not trying to piss everyone off. She is in tune with her own inner values, those core values that you sometimes need to separate, you know, because we've talked about Libra earlier. Sometimes, you know, part of that dynamic is that you need to withdraw into Taurus and just to center yourself and, you know, be clear about who you are so that you can be self-reliant. And that's a lot of what I see in this chart. And one of the things that I kind of want to bring up is the asteroid Lucifer, which in evolutionary astrology is, you know, it's considered a dynamic within us that just preys upon our negative emotion. It kind of wants to well, wants to, I'm talking about it like it's another person. It's a dynamic within all of us. But I wanted to talk about it today because, I mean, I think that it's, I know I've experienced it and I've paid attention to it. And so I thought in this context, let's talk about it. So she's got Lucifer at 25 degrees Leo in the second house, right? So this obviously is going to correlate to a dynamic within her where she's, you know, she's like, I want to actualize myself. I see myself in this. I care about this. And I want to be self-reliant here. And I'm making these choices, but here I am trapped. It kind of reminds me of the whole archetype of the kept woman, you know, where you get into a situation and someone wants to keep you contained. And, you know, there's the square between Lucifer to, what is it? Chiron in the 11th in Taurus, and Uranus in the 5th in Scorpio. And so we've all kind of spoken to this, so I'm not going to get too deep, but it really does reinforce this pattern that there is this pressure relative to this archetype, because this is what it means. You know, there is a dynamic within all of us where we try to do something and something messes the whole thing up. And no matter what we do, and then it can seem so defeating. And that's exactly how the archetype operates. It feeds on those negative emotions that are generated from your self-defeat. And it kind of just reminds me, you know, how Rose mentioned earlier that she was suicidal when she was living in the UK and trying to be this, you know, part of the royal family with her official duties. She literally shared with people that I didn't want to be alive. And that's exactly what Lucifer does. You know, the archetype of Lucifer, that's exactly what that does. It magnifies problems in a way where you don't think you can get beyond it, or it is so difficult. However, the good news is that with this archetype, you know, is that all you have to do is some work. All you got to do is objectify these things and just make a push and just hold on to your strength and overcome it, even though it seems like you're never going to get there. Just hold on to it. And so in Meghan's case, I really think that's the case. I mean, it couldn't have been comfortable for her to do all of these things, you know, separating herself from the royal family and being so targeted by the media and being so sensitive and having this child where she wants to, like, there's so much stuff going on. So I understand where she went there. However, she didn't go there. She didn't go there. She decided to make an act of courage, which was to stand up and be self-reliant and say, okay, and this includes Harry, you know, we're going to cut ourselves off from this dependent financial situation. We're going to go ahead and live the lives that are authentic to us, even though we're not going to get the protection, the money, the fancy names, you know, so be it, you know. And that is really kind of one of the important things about the second house in Taurus, is that it's really important to withdraw sometimes to get back to that power. And so in her case, I think that really is the bearer of light. So I just kind of wanted to share that. But Kristin, you know, let's hear about Lilith.
You guys have all said so much, so I'll just kind of keep this short, but she's got Lilith and Capricorn, and but the little spin is her retrograde. Lilith is her original design as a woman in the world. It's the way she was created by God as a woman in the world in this way. And so to have Lilith and Capricorn, of course, we know her proximity to a Capricorn regime. The retrograde reflects the fact that she is a woman who challenges consensus at day one. I mean, you can see it throughout the whole chart where this is repeated, starting with the South Node in Aquarius. But she is definitely somebody who shouldering a lot of responsibility, probably always has. She was forced to grow up fast. She's learning how to become her own inner authority. And to put Lilith in Capricorn retrograde in the 6th, she is absolutely a champion for the underdog. And we've talked about this, this passion for equality. And in their nonprofit organization, she and Prince Harry, their two biggest causes are Black Lives Matter and COVID relief. And COVID relief obviously is connected to global health. And then Capricorn connects directly to skin color. And so here she is, really a champion and grabbing the microphone there, if you want to use that phrase again, with original Lilith squaring her Saturn in the 3rd house in Libra. It's so literal. I love it. She really is an authority on the subject, so to speak, and she'll go to the mat for it and challenge anybody in her field for it. Even going, in this case, to her child's defense and not wanting to parade him around, So just to be human, to be like everybody else. I mean, that is definitely part of it for her. So Lilith Capricorn retrograde too can be very much a soul who has the backbone, just the makeup to move the consensus forward. She's probably deep into the 1st stage individuated. But the truth is she did choose to marry Prince Harry, who comes also from a very Capricorn reality. I think Princess Diana, of course, is very Aquarian in her own ways, but she uses the platform of the royal family background foundation to express and assert herself, and the world is responding because of it. So I know she may not have been conscious in these choices. She didn't maybe imagine in her wildest dreams she would fall in love with somebody that was part of the royal family, but prior to entering this world, I'm sure she did know that. So anyway, the Lilith in Capricorn is really just, and going straight to the top for something, like she did when she was upset about that Procter & Gamble ad or a commercial, and going straight to Hillary Clinton. She's not afraid to go to the top. She's not afraid to take something on. So that's a woman who can rub shoulders with the men and, saddle up with the boys, as they say. She can really is not afraid or intimidated by that at all. And so I think she's a very strong woman. She's got a lot of, even though she's so tender, and there's this, you can feel her Cancer energy, there's also this earthy male energy within her that I think she's very balanced on that level. So that's my take on her Lilith, original Lilith. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, one thing came to mind as you guys were talking in terms of what helped her draw herself out of her shell or helped her self-empower. As you guys were speaking, I remember her saying that the more that she linked the more that she went towards her passion to speak her passions around equality, social justice, and so on, that it helped her gain her confidence or her footsteps in how to come out in the world. That it was like she found a platform by being able to say, look, this isn't for me, or whatever the words are. This is really about me lending my voice to those who are underprivileged, or that's really what's helping me gain my footsteps here. And I remember her saying at first it was scary, and the more and more I do it, the more confident I become in it. And so it's like that, gaining that internal security, which is so paramount, especially with Pluto in the 4th and Mars in Cancer being in the 12th, to become our own authority in the end. Seeing the Moon Saturn in Libra in the 3rd, giving voice to others, or giving voice to the equality for others, helped her actualize or helped her step into that Leo energy. As you said, Kristin, the world was responding, using the royal platform.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, sorry about that, she feels responsible for all the people, all the underdogs, or all those that don't feel like they're getting a fair shot. She feels like she's in a position of responsibility where she can use her voice to make a difference. And so there's a certain degree of pressure that, of course, and that is going to be a motivator. Oh my goodness, think of all the people I can help. Think of all the sick people or Black people or women I can help, or children I can help with this role. And so she's built and born to do that. And so
Right.
that Mars in Cancer, which is, insecure, maybe shy and all these other things, is going to have to kind of pull herself up by those inner bootstraps, as she's doing and has done, and mature very quickly in the process, force, her evolution in the process. I think becoming a mother is the fastest way to do that.
Child with that Pluto transit on her descendant. I mean, that Cancer ascendant is really like mothering the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
Fierce way, and Pluto will cross her south node very soon as well. We're soon looking at that actually. So she's in a very particular period in her life where she's really releasing a lot of her past life karma and can come out with a healed kind of consciousness and step up and do that regal mothering thing. And really show that she is worthy of ruling, which is, back in the days, it was not, inherited like that, the royal title. It was, you had to win it. You had to prove yourself worthy of it. And that's a concept that, like, the people choose their leaders, right? But in the old constitutions, the people have no say anymore. So she will be incredibly popular, I think, and very, very empowered, as she also manages to lift some of that karmic debris that is hanging onto her own shoulders and settling the disputes, at least for her part, in terms of what she have gone through in her life. And remember, Princess Di had a moon in Aquarius. So very much taking the torch.
And for sure.
To the United States, because basically what happened back in the early 1990s when Princess Di was killed, it could have been avoided. And this is what Harry knows. He knows that if anyone had had the fair mind to protect her, Princess Di, even though whatever happened, she was still considered an object of, she was still and I'm using the word object quite consciously here, because that's how it's objectifying someone and calling, being put in a position like that. And she was hunted like an animal and got little protection from the royal family. When she divorced, she was kind of out of it, and they had nothing, like no responsibility, but they were very responsible. And I think they didn't quite step up. And many times, I think that's been the case with the British royal house, is that they could have done differently, but they chose not to do anything.
Right.
There's been several occasions about that. And now we have this big, this thing with one of the brothers who's being pulled into this scandal with Epstein. And, it's just like, boy, oh boy, you should have done something before, maybe, So I think, that's a very healthy thing, changing the monarchy, and having a debate about, its placement. But yeah.
All right. Well, that was awesome. I loved hearing from all of you. It just makes it so complete. I think we have a really strong picture of her now. And now we're going to have some laughs with Sol.
Well, hopefully the pressures. I mean, you know how difficult it is to be funny when you have to go on stage. I'm sure Leo knows all about that. Leo is my polar opposite. It is, I'm Aquarius, and I'm, of course, greatly fascinated by this warmth and the creative spontaneity that you see in this sign, this yes, please quality that lies deep in Leo. Yes, please, of course. Yes, sure. Absolutely. Bring it, There is the sense of wanting to live life at its fullest. And that sometimes, although perhaps a little superficial, translates into the first meme that we will see, if we can please. Oh, the Leo dream bedroom. Life is short. Why not live with style? And that sometimes, Leo is all about expectations of what life should be bringing you and dreaming about creating it. And you got to put your goals up high, you know, but the reality is, if you look at, it's the current bedroom and it's getting closer, you know. Leo is fixed fire, and you put one, how do you call it, when you, piece of wood on the fire, you know, you have to keep it going. It's about maintaining the fire. So of course it's hard to see, you know, how can I get from there to this first bedroom, but getting closer. So there will be some creative effort, you know, putting your effort into creating whatever you love with Leo. And probably that's why I find them extremely fascinating, how they have that, keeping the fire going.
Mhm.
So let's see what's coming. Oh yeah, when life gives you, we'll make basil lemonade, like green juice,
Yummy.
tastier.
Mm.
Because when you want to live life, you won't settle. So, you know, why do green juice when you can do one with bubbles?
No, I love that. Yum.
Amen.
If you think Taurus got an actual tree, wait till you meet a Leo. You know, expensive taste, there's this, that, you know, even that might be like a more consensus way of seeing Leo. Leo has a taste for magnificence. You know, it wants to enjoy life at its fullest. So you can often find a little bit of a luxurious kind of thing going on. It's the big fur and the humongous glasses and the statements. Doesn't go for, oh, dad and a bunch of his friends looking at the Leo kid. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure at all. You know, smile. He's like, showing off. And the Leo kid, Leo is very sensitive to attention.
Yes.
You know, they say it's, you know, sometimes you have this projection on Leo that they really want attention. No, they're just so radiant, and they sometimes have this experience. Very often Leos are the firstborn, and they are put like my first child kind of emphasis on their existence. This is the heir of my empire. And so there's like this, the pressure to perform can be very high with Leo. And it can sometimes be a little negative because you're not seen for who you are, but for who people want you to be. So expectations is kind of a journey for Leo, how to get rid of external expectations and how they influence your internal expectations, and try to move on and listen to that authentic fire within yourself and live life with purpose. So yeah, sometimes pressure begins just there.
Right. No, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, not to like hold this up, but I mean, you know, I've been in that situation where people are like, oh, you're really special in this way. And then everyone's like waiting for you to do it. And it's like, you know,
Yeah.
So I totally related to that joke. Like, it's hilarious.
Actually performing and actually doing it without
Yeah.
thinking.
Right.
Always this union opposites, the kind of self-consciousness kicking in. And
Yeah.
that's when you have individuated Leo. When you're a Leo, you don't like attention, but you kind of like it anyway, you know. The hair, you know, they're everywhere. You know, they are very fond of their hair. They have beautiful hair. Oh, when you're a Leo and you tell old age to go, you know, he's 77. You gotta appreciate it. You know, like he's
Wow. Yeah.
just got his, I don't know how many children he has, but he's still, you know, he's a father to a small child. And that's, you know, the essence of Leo. It's like life ain't over till it's over. Not until I, you know, like I'm dead. That's when life is over. And
Exactly.
we're gonna. They hate growing older.
Mm-hmm.
They hate it. It's such a no death. You know, it's such opposing forces. So Leo is here to challenge death.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what we have next. Oh, Leo's getting burnt out after trying to impress everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's always a potential of burnout when it comes to fire. It's like you want to please everyone. And again, it's a little bit back to those expectations. Like if you meet a Leo, they hate to disappoint anyone. They hate it. They might do it unknowingly, but they don't like it. They might just
Right.
hide from the fact that they're doing it and pretend they're not doing it, but they
Right.
really.
Like indifference is the worst thing in the world in that case.
Being different to a Leo, that's gonna roll well. It depends on the level of consciousness, as usual. Yes. Wow, you're right, Leo. And again, back to the theme of it ain't over till it's over.
Oh my goodness.
I had to bring it.
That is so funny.
Okay, she's out there raving, so I like it.
Going for it.
Okay, are there more? I think I made, a typical response to the Leonian charm. Huh? But other people certainly see it. It's very, very hard. They can charm themselves out of any situation. It's like they can be so extremely charming, and they have this gift of seeing others, right? So they know exactly what to say. So that's very, they get a lot of fans.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's a little bit obsessive fan base, like I need your radiance. You forgot to give me any attention. I want that Leonian attention. You feel vibrant, you feel alive. Once you've been seen, you know what it means to be here. Like a Leo can give you that feeling. It's a gift. It's a true gift. But I know a lot of Leos get fairly burnt out by having that gift, actually, because people want more attention, and they get grumpy when they don't get attention. So, being, that's where Capricorn comes in as an inconjunct to this sign, being in authority, being in good leadership, not promising more than you can handle, not wanting to impress and promising more, right? So it's very important for Leo to remember the Capricornian structures and morals and boundaries and just leadership. There's a strong leadership theme. What is the difference between a natural leader and a mature leader, a grown-up, conscious, mature leader? And that's the path a lot of Leos, especially if they have also some Capricorn in them, will take. You saw that with Obama. He had, he's a Leo sun, and he had like Saturn, Jupiter over the signs, Saturn, Jupiter conjunction over Capricorn, Aquarius. I think it was like just in the, on the cusp there. One is in Capricorn and the other one is in Aquarius. And it really shows that, he comes out with a very mature Leo expression, a very responsible Leo expression. Like, it's not just a game. Like, I'm responsible for, I'm acting in a responsible manner to my power.
But can I just add that he had swag?
Yeah.
He has swag.
Right.
He's cute and he's playful and he's spontaneous. He has that spontaneity, which is very uncommon for a lot of people in position. I don't know. He played basketball and jazz. He was there. He was one with the others in many ways.
Totally, I agree. He's a great Leo. Okay, thank you for the humor, Soul. We live for it. It extends our lives to be able to laugh.
Well, and I have to leave you guys now.
Yes.
But you enjoy the rest of the time here.
Thank you. Toodaloo.
Thank you
All
so
right, Deva, movies and music. You've got this one.
Yeah, I felt that a good movie pick for Leo is a movie called August Rush. It's about a young boy who's separated from his mom from birth. He's put in an orphanage unbeknownst to his mom. She was hit by a car and ended up giving birth when she was unconscious. And her dad didn't like who she was, her partner. So he made a lie and said that the baby was lost and that she'd had a miscarriage and had put the baby up for adoption unbeknownst to her. And so what ends up happening is that through their love of music. She's a musician and her partner's in a rock band. She's a cellist. Her partner's in an Irish rock band. Her son ends up inheriting her ability for music. He's a natural composer. And he ends up, they all have a quest to try and find each other. They all just have this feeling that that they'll reconnect in the end, or that they'll find each other, and they end up reconnecting through their love of music. They end up finding each other, that she ends up playing the cello again, and they end up picking him to be the composer.
Oh my gosh, I know. I
That's
have chills.
And it's an incredible scene too, because he has to run away from a person who's giving him shelter. He ends up running away from the orphanage because he wants to find his family, and he ends up being on the street and meets a person who has everybody and has everyone street performing, and he picks up on, it calls him August, picks up on his love of music and exploits his talent and tries to keep him with him, and August tries to run away, and there's a big confrontation in a subway. And August almost misses the performance, and then at the last scene his mom shows up on stage. I should did give it away, but such a good scene. And then there he is composing, and there's her partner, and they'd all found it through the same flyer. So for me, the message is to follow your heart. They never gave up on reconnecting and found each other through their natural passion, and they wouldn't allow that to be exploited. They all had various ways being lied to, or like with his situation with the street performer wanting to exploit for his own purposes. And no, I'm gonna follow my heart, and we'll find our way.
Awesome. I remember seeing this movie long ago. I need to see it again. It's such an incredible, happy
See,
ending.
I haven't seen it, so I can't wait. But
All right.
like I really, gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, it's what you were saying, kind of what you were just describing. It's, there's that whole Leo dynamic where when you've got something, it's about taking charge. There comes a point where you got to take charge. It ain't just gonna happen. I mean, maybe in some contexts it will, but that is one of the core lessons of the archetype. And so
Right, self-empowerment,
yeah.
taking charge, and following that, no matter what's coming from the external. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a lot in the movie that could have led them to give up, and they said no.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Deva. Well, we're going to move into a wrap for today. And my inspirational message is about the heart. It is about that energy that gets you out of bed every day. And without passion and without purpose, like in this movie, life is hard. It takes a lot of effort to live if you don't have passion and purpose. So I want to ask you all, what turns your light on? When you look back in your life, you've got memories, I'm sure, that you can tap into, tune into, remember, and a certain feeling emerges. You remember what it feels like to be on fire, to be passionate, to be driven, to feel alive, to have your heart open. So this month we have a lot of Virgo energy in place with this Leo sun at the moment. And as Rose was talking about, this a combination of energy this coming weekend, and as we pull into September, I mean, it's really about maybe doing a little extra work to turn that light on, going a little further to find out what that is, or how to manifest those feelings again. It is a heart chakra month. The heart chakra is actually ruled by Venus, but when I think of Leo, I do think of the heart. I think nobody loves like a Leo loves, or that energy of Leo loves. We all have a fifth house, and so we all really know what that feels like to tap into that solar flare and that solar force. So I just like you to imagine for yourself what that is, and to start taking steps, Virgo steps, one step in front of the other. Simple steps can go a very long way, and very suddenly in the coming weeks. So I wish that for all of you. Namaste. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about evolutionary astrology, please check out the website. There's a message board on the website at schoolofevolutionaryastrology.com where you can post a question, participate in threads that are going on, or even get a hold of the DVDs from the original course taught by the founder of EA, Jeff Green. So check it out. Thanks all you guys for being here today. It was so much fun. I've missed you all.
I know.
Ah,
Including the
long.
viewers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sue and Robin, they're our fearless leaders now backstage. And so
Yeah, thank you, Sue and Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Till we meet again.
Till we meet again.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.